Welcome to Board of Education number 1 for the new school year. I'm calling the meeting to order, and we'll have roll call. Some fans. Ms. Ishisaka?
Mrs. Freeman?
Here.
Dr. Garpetian?
Here.
Ms. Nahabedian?
Here.
Thank you. Mrs. Walters?
Here.
And Mr. Kokorian.
He is en route. And now we have an opportunity for public communications for closed session items only, and we have 2 cards to address closed session items. So I will just remind you quickly that you have no more than 5 minutes to speak, and we'll have the timer, but you 2 are pros, so I know you know what we're doing here. So our first speaker is Mr. Herbert Molano.
Oh, I'm pretty good about keeping it under 5. I've done it a few hundred times. Good afternoon, School Board President Walters, Superintendent, School Board members. My name is Herbert Molano, and I'm a Glendale resident. I happen to live very close, within 2 blocks of this location, and I thought that in my retirement years I could, do some things that were other than having more public advocacy, but somehow these issues sometimes come before me that require at least an additional level of awareness. Because I have been so involved in a lot of the planning or in committees that have to do with city planning, like the Downtown Specific Plan Advisory Committee, I'm pretty much aware as to what has occurred in the past. And I'm addressing item C7, by the way, in case you're not aware. Which has to do with the conference concerning the sale of this property or the potential sale or swap of this property so that the school district can then proceed with perhaps new facilities. What caught my eye was the letter or the article in the Glendale News Press when I look at the particular justification for it. And 2 things bother me are the quickness with which this particular issue has come before you, and the rationale which doesn't seem to sustain this kind of major type of investment and swap. But there's a third item that really concerns me, and I think it requires that the board address it into the future and bring the neighborhood in place. This is Recreational Planning Area 10, which is the most efficient in parkland in all of Glendale. And for a very long time, the community has been asking for the city council to look at properties within our area to relieve the shortage. We have less than 0.02 acres of parkland per 1,000, and in some areas in Glendale is 6 acres per 1,000. We have additional significant problems with parking. It's neighbor against neighbor. On trash days, it's an impossibility. People are taking other people's parking. People fight. They ruin. It is a daily misery. People parking 2 blocks away in order to find a place. So whenever there is an intent of a swap where there is development taking place, and this particular building and lot seemed like a particular ideal for the overdevelopment that has taken place in Glendale in the past 4 years. That's nearly 4,000 units that have come up. And an additional 100 units, which you could easily place in this particular area in 3.5 acres, would overtax not just the water facilities, the infrastructure, the electricity, the roads, and the parking. This is an issue that is not simply a matter for the school district, because right now, as a school district, you really don't need to be concerned about what goes around you, just your own entity. But once it becomes private property, once you do the swap and it is no longer part of the school district, then given what the city council has been doing, it will become a major development project. And I'm assuming that's what the intent is all about. And frankly, the community surrounding this property feels choked by the significant amount of overdevelopment, fewer parking spaces, the daily grind that has reduced our quality of life is horrendous. And so because it appears that this thing is moving way too fast, I'm assuming that there's going to be an environmental impact report, at least in the area of safety and how it impacts fire and police and traffic and so forth. Because it is not just a matter of saying, we relieve this property and now it is somebody else's problem. It isn't. You have an obligation. We have all of the children of these families that have no place to play. They play on the alleys. People who have significant difficulty getting to and from places because the traffic is so bad and the lack of parking is so severe that it impacts us. It is my suggestion that if the GUSD has not considered getting an environmental impact report, that maybe the community should induce the GUSD to do one. Because what I foresee is really a further deterioration of our quality of life. It's really severe. And I want you to take that into account as you go further. Proceed with caution. Give it time. You don't need to hurry in this process because it impacts the community severely. And I thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Nalini Lasiewicz.
Hi, I'm Nalini Lasiewicz, and I'm a resident of La Cañada, but I'm in the Glendale School District. So I'm here to talk about the same issue that's in closed session today. I also read the article in the Glendale News Press. By the way, nice to meet you, Mr. Humphrey. Is that Hempe? Hempe. Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here. When I read the article about this potential transfer, and I understand the need to get an assessment of the value of property. I mean, that's just exploratory, and it's a fundamental beginning point of deciding what you're going to do with any asset, right? What is the value of the asset? But in the public sector, a piece of property that's owned by the taxpayers and paid for by the taxpayers, it's in a sense it's priceless, because let's just say in 10 years going forward, if the school board wanted a big piece of property downtown Glendale, there would be no way in the world you could find it or carve it out or afford it. So even though the monetary value put on this next week or 6 months from now is set at a certain level, actually, because it's public property, the value is much different than it would be if you were flipping houses, or in the real estate business. Oh my goodness. What an entrance. So that in many municipalities, and I noticed an article in today's LA Times that I wanted to bring to your attention. Recently, the city of Los Angeles sold a fire station in Studio City. And when you read today's article, the assessment of the property kept vacillating. First it was 1.7 million, then 1.5, then 900,000. And, that's the point I'm trying to make, is setting a value is very difficult. But one of the things it says in this article is the LA city codes have requirements. If you're going to get rid of property, you first need to make that property available to other public entities. And so this is the question that I'm bringing before the board. Apparently there must be some kind of a need to move the administrative building. The press hasn't reported on exactly what that is. Whether or not our current building is functionally obsolete or what the actual need is. We don't know that. But what we do know is that there's a lot of need in the public sector, in the public space. I'd like to reiterate the things that Mr. Molano said. The lack of green space in this part of Glendale is critical, and it has been for many years. The lack of parking is really ruining people's lives in this particular neighborhood. We need affordable housing, in Glendale really badly. Teenagers don't have much place to hang out. They're hanging out in parking garages at apartment buildings all over the city, and I think you all know that. So the question is, if this school district is thinking of moving, is there a way that you can go to the city of Glendale or the county of Los Angeles and see how your plans for a new facility can fit into some of the other existing long-term plans? We're developing the LA River right now. Long-term plans. We're supposedly going to be doing a cat park on the 134 freeway. Is there some opportunity for public agencies to take advantage of this unbelievable asset that we have here? we would hate to think that a property developer came to the district and said, I would like this property to put up this and that development. And then the district turns around and says, hey, we can make some money on this deal and build a great building. The reference to a Google campus threw me off, too, because, as we all know, Google has more money than God. And so, Google can do things that a school district can't do. And so I'm just urging you to really think carefully before you let go of this property and see if there's some way that it can benefit the public. Thank you so much.
Just finish it up.
Okay, thank you very much. That is the last of our closed session item public comments, so we will now be recessing into closed session. We should return about 6:30. Interest in property, Dr. Empey.
Yes, we're always interested in this district in having outstanding facilities and property. And an opportunity has come along that we may want to consider, and we have representatives here tonight to discuss that. And I'm going to ask Mr. McEntire to introduce our guest, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Empey. This evening I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Sam Manoukian. At a prior board meeting, the district had retained Mr. Manoukian with the idea of seeing if there was a feasible likelihood of identifying a property that might allow us to consolidate operations and find some synergies in the way we do things, specifically in the area of leveraging the learning that goes on through the collaborative work we do with our teachers. And so Mr. Manoukian has been working with a few different groups around town, and it seems like the more that this becomes public, the more groups he's involving in this process. But I know we've kind of made the first step in identifying a property, and he'd like to walk us through what the potential is so it can be open for public discussion before anything actually happens. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Sam Manoukian.
Good evening, board members. My name is Sam Manoukian. I am the director of the commercial division for RE/MAX, and I am a resident and a product of the Glendale Unified School District, and graduated from Hoover, by the way. One of the things that I wanted to help clarify with this presentation is, first of all, let me make it very clear. We have not put anything up for sale. We have not sold anything. We are not. What we are doing is taking a look at a proposal that has been presented to us. The proposal that has been presented to us is from a developer who is proposing to exchange real property for some of our properties that we have. And this presentation, I will go into some of the details. If I can get there we go. One of the main scope of the assignment that you retained me for was to take a look at, analyze, assess, and perform due diligence for the new proposed site that is being proposed to us, evaluate our assets, and basically find the highest and best use for our asset and the pricing, identify fair market value of the proposed new site, and possibly negotiate terms, price, conditions of the exchange. And one other thing that we wanted to do was identify other potential sites that we could possibly consider, if we are going to consider anything at all. This is, again, I keep reiterating the fact that this is just an opportunity for us to explore different opportunities that have been presented to us. Going to the next slide. Okay, there we go. As some of you may know, we have limitations as far as on what we can and cannot do with the real properties that you own as the school district. I think Mr. McEntire might be able to help me on some of the restrictions that we have on us being able to sell our property. We have to provide a couple of different options. If you can help me on that for it.
Certainly. what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do in regard to the sale or exchange of property is dictated by Ed Code, and there are many different laws that come into place under certain types of transactions. One example would be is if the district decided it wanted to just out and out sell a property. There's a law called the Naylor Act that says that we have to advertise the property, and any city, county, or parks agency can come in and take 30% of that property at our original cost. So say we bought a property back in 1950 for $1,000. They would only have to pay us 30% of that $1,000 for their part of that property before we would be allowed to do anything else with the remaining portion of the property. And so when it comes to selling property, we're not in the best position to do that as a school agency. And that's why exchange makes a lot more sense in certain types of transactions, such as what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Because it's really about maximizing the value of what we're putting back into the community for our children.
In fairness to our kids, I mean, it's to take our assets and give away 30% of it, and it can be not beneficial, let's put it that way. And so any exchange of real property for something that is beneficial to the district is very, very smart of you to at least look at and assess. And that's exactly what we're doing today. So the exchange is a great option if for the right terms and conditions. And the other option that we have is also development. Well, as anyone knows in the city of Glendale, you cannot find too many parcels that can support an infrastructure that we would be looking for. One of the main other points that I want to get into is the proposed site that on Grandview, which the address is 1011 and 1015 Grandview. Oops, there we go. This slide will show you some of the highlights of the property itself that they're presenting for us to consider as an exchange. The site parcel itself is 3.6 acres, consists of about 158,000 square feet of land. The building that is on the property consists of two buildings, two office buildings. One of them is a creative office of about 48,000 square feet. The second is the main office, which is a three-story office building of 62,000 square feet, creating a combined total of 110,000 square feet. The other attractive part that we looked at, which was very favorable, is the three-level parking structure at the site, which consists of 326 parking spaces. When you start comparing that with your current location and the deficiencies in a sense of comparing parking, it doesn't even come close. And one of the other factors is the square footage that you are currently occupying is just under 50,000 square feet, which you pretty much have maxed out based on the efficiency of the operation you're running and the limitation that you have. You're basically landlocked. You don't have the ability to expand on. And one of the beauties of the proposed site on Grandview is the ability to expand your operations and make it more efficient. I don't know, it doesn't come too clearly on these slides, but, whoop, hold on one second. Let me go back. Okay. The main building, as I said, you will see right off of Grandview, and it was the former site for the Career College. I'm trying to remember the name, but they have moved to a current.
Yeah, Glendale Career College.
There you go. There you go. They've moved on to a location on Brand, and this site has been vacant. And what the current owner has done is basically removed a lot of the improvements. And in the next pages that you will see, we've put together a space plan that the developer is proposing to renovate and build these tenant improvements according to our specifications. There you go. These are, and you will see for each section of the building, we've sat down with your team and put together a layout that is the most efficient and the most productive environment that we could create. Again, all of this is assuming we come to an agreement, and that we are long ways off from making this happen. We still have a lot of obstacles that we have to go through, but this was one of the presentation points that we wanted to put in to at least clarify some of the miscommunication that is taking place out there about us selling property or only dealing with this. We are just basically assessing a proposal that has been submitted to us based on the properties.
Sam, I want to
Yes.
Sam, I want to say on this floor here and +2 and continue on with your discussion. But obviously, what you're showing here is this is a proposed, just tentative plan of a floor plan we're looking at, right? We're looking at of opportunities for us because for our layout configuration.
So a lot of criteria have to go into assessing whether or not any site makes sense for a district of our size. We have a certain number of staff that we have to attend to, and the idea of consolidation definitely is the most attractive part of this. But for example, and these site plans are very, very preliminary because we would have to be, a transaction would need to be closed. We would need stakeholder input, not just staff, but parents. You'll see in this particular first draft in the floor plans that the first floor of the front building is 100% dedicated to all activities that involve parent or student engagement. So if there's any resource that a parent may need, whether it be through the Healthy Start Office, Triple ELP,
I think
Student
that's
Services,
what I want to allude. I want to jump onto that conversation because this is what's important here is that, I've had the opportunity to visit probably about 15 to 20 school districts in the last, this year actually, from Desert Sands School District to Pasadena to Roland Heights, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing that this gives us the component here of having a one-stop center for our students right now and parents. Right now, traditionally, we go to our building here, we go the front entranceway, you got to go through the hallway to get to the Welcome Center, student services upstairs, everything's hodgepodge. So when we hear comments of why we're looking at this presents us an opportunity to have everything on one floor, conducive and actually flowing together. When I look at this layout, I know it's just preliminary, but looking at it as not only as a parent but as a board member that would use this facility, we have the opportunity here to have student services, a welcome center, intercultural support systems, all on one floor, all integrated and connected together by looking at this layout. In our present building, we are scattered throughout the building on different floors and scattered, and we're also confined by space.
We're also scattered at different sites.
Sites, too. So this gives us also the component where we hear some statements of us to do our due diligence. Just for us to upgrade this facility, you're talking millions of dollars here, because once you break any type of changes in this building with the ADA laws and everything else we have to go in here, there's some straightforward common sense opportunities we have here that are very straightforward for us to look at, because this presents us with a unique opportunity to really expand our staff to do the work without communicating together too. Essentially, they come to the Welcome Center, they need help, they got to go to student services, you can refer to family right next door, and it's just that coordination is priceless itself. And then two is, I'll let you proceed, but it's just exciting that this opportunity is there, so we're just looking at this as an opportunity. Nothing is set in stone, because obviously if you go out and we do it all in far in advance, you end up fluctuating and hurting prices for negotiating too. Can't negotiate it yourself. I know the public would love us to do certain things, but there's certain things that we have to do to follow that makes common sense too for us to do. So
Absolutely.
proceed. I just wanted to get that message out there because that's a vital point here that we're looking at.
It is. But even if you were to make the upgrades to the current building, you still are limited as far as future expansion or your ability to run an efficient operation. You're absolutely right.
Because we heard a couple of the speakers talk about green space and parking. Our parking limitations here are horrendous, as we see out in front of us here. And plus two, I think this is a question that I'm going to allude to Robert. Besides our parking space out here, we rent how many parking spaces now with the church and the YMCA? We have numerous rental agreements out there existing right now.
We rent with the church, Ralph's, and the YMCA.
Okay, if you cut all three rental agreements out, we wouldn't need that with this new parking facility. So these are things that we know, that we hear these things, and we're doing our due diligence. To be honest, if I was looking at this as a taxpayer and as a parent, I would say, well, this is a great opportunity now. Let's look into this and let's see more.
Absolutely.
And it's not more of a, it's a reality thing that we would look at,
Absolutely.
too.
This is not it's an opportunity that we are looking at, and if everything is negotiated correctly and all the terms are agreeable, at that point, it would be something for you to
Years
consider.
ago, I know we talked about this before, and so I could talk about it publicly. We used to have our food services. We used to rent facilities for our food services. We used to rent facilities for parking up in La Crescenta and Montrose. We consolidated all that, brought it inside the PDC. We incorporate. We cut down our leases, which saved us money, which was actually prudent for us. And actually, by us being aggressive with this, we generated millions of dollars through PDC and the PDC sale. We created opportunities for us for this. So this is, I'm very encouraged by it. I'm just curious about the
Absolutely.
opportunity. So proceed. So I apologize.
No. You guys were thinking ahead at the time, and that's why you have some of these assets to begin with.
Such a unique opportunity.
Absolutely. And part of the process that the proposal that we are being asked to consider for the exchange are the properties where we are standing today. Now, you also have the situation where you have Daly High School also, which is a part of this, your current parcel. And based on the proposal that's in front of us, we are asked to basically make an adjustment on our existing parcel, which would be in a form of a lot line adjustment, where we would provide the additional parking for the high school that's currently here, and the remaining portion outlined under A, B, C, D, E, and one more property, which will be the Palmer units. The next slide basically talks about the list of the properties that we are being asked to process as a part of the exchange. And the conclusion so far, based on what we have looked at and the assessment that we've done, the current building will require continuous upgrades and is currently operating at full capacity without any room for growth. The professional development will also have to go off-site. Current site has a shortage of parking that we talked about and no room for adding any new parking. The Grandview site will give you the opportunity to have a far better parent, student, customer experience, efficient operation, and the ability to eliminate waste in a form of utilities and energy. The Grandview site will let you to consolidate multiple operations under one roof and will create a campus setting. The results will create the synergy and collaboration achieved in running an efficient operations very similar to corporate campuses like Google, Microsoft, or Apple. The ability to occupy a building that uses the most efficient layout and the space planning created specifically for your use. And as a part of the exchange, we will be receiving new tenant improvements based on our specific plans. This is the preliminary information where we are as of today. We still have a long ways to go, but this helps clarify some of the misconceptions out there that we've heard today, and so I'd like to answer any questions if anyone has any questions concerning this process.
Questions?
Yeah, a little bit, and either one of you, and as far as you're able to answer, because I know sometimes we're still in the process. So I know this building needs a lot of work, and so maybe, Robert, can you talk to, just in terms of from a financial perspective, I know we don't have any details yet, but we have a sense, how does the money work, I guess, if you could maybe address that a little bit.
So your question specifically about this building, there are several areas where this building's out of compliance, and that's mostly just due to age and the fact that it hasn't been renovated in the last, well, since before the 80s, definitely. It would require well over $10 million to make compliant. Hi, Ms. Nabetian. It would require a fair bit of capital, well in excess of $10 million in capital to make for example, the bathrooms ADA compliant, to make significant upgrades to the fire systems in the building, alarm systems, things like that. That really would have no aesthetic improvement, and certainly wouldn't solve the fact that we're a part of the parking problem here locally. When we run professional development in this room specifically, when we put 70 people in here, There's 70 cars out on the street that didn't fit in our parking lot for the most part. And in my mind, parking is probably like the 8th or 9th benefit, not one of the top 5, certainly, of this concept. So in reality, if the appraisal values of our properties, if we could find a transaction whereby another property makes sense and the swap would be close to equal or even cover a large portion of the tenant improvements, that could theoretically be a big win for the district. And I know you all are very financially savvy. You wouldn't allow us to put together a transaction that didn't make financial sense, even looking beyond just operations. So we're not ignorant of that fact, and we recognize that as kind of the big red light bulb flashing in front of us as we even have these discussions with different parties. It really needs to make sense at all levels, something we'd all be proud to have published in the paper. Did that answer your question?
It does. Can I ask a follow-up? So in terms of then the funding, because at some point, one way or another, we're looking at having to spend some money on a facility here and there. How is that actually funded?
Okay, so if there were any costs in excess of what the property swap would cover, the district would definitely want to consider looking at only funds that could be used for construction, that could not legally be used for operations. So a couple examples of that might be, for example, when the swap was done with the Palmer property, there was an excess dollar, about $3 million profit made on that deal. Well, that $3 million profit is theoretically can only be legally used for facilities improvements. This would be one place you could use that. Developer fees would be another area. We definitely have to make sure that we keep our promises, specifically when it comes to things like Measure S. And we didn't talk about this sort of project in Measure S, so we could never use Measure S dollars for a project like this. You know, we promised that money had to go to the schools, and it needs to go to the schools.
Just back to the, if let's say, probably in 10 years, this building will become obsolete probably, and we need to do something about it. Now, as of right now, if let's say there's no property and we want to upgrade this building, can you tell the viewers or the public how do we get that funding to do, because it has to, we need to be clear, how do we, let's say this building needs to be torn down for, in 10 years, let's say, where do we get the funding so that viewers know?
It would be a pretty tough sell, because we would essentially, it would be part of our next bond program likely, and we'd be trying to convince the people at home who are very, very kind and generous to the district to build administrative offices, and that is not an easy conversation to have, because frankly it's tough to talk about anything that doesn't involve putting every dollar in the classroom. And that's why trying to leverage the value of what we have in a very attractive piece of property downtown into something more meaningful in a part of town that's not so congested could potentially work. Internally we've assessed the need to cost well over $10 million, and it would be an ongoing sort of thing where we'd have to continually make improvements to get the building up to standard. But we've actually realized that in order to kind of look the public in the face and have this conversation in a very meaningful way, we probably should have contractor bids behind that. So we're looking at actually developing a scope of work and bidding it out so we can say this is the real cost today of this work, just because we feel like we should be as transparent as possible as we look at every phase of this.
And as far as if we go ahead and do this, what is the criteria as far as public, to get the public involved or to get their input? Is there anything? No, it's...
No, absolutely. I mean, this is part of the process. This is part of the process that
So what's next after this?
Oh, you're so long. I mean, there's still so many hurdles to go through at this stage, but there are components that I shared with you during closed session that unfortunately I cannot share right now, public, but we still have to achieve those hurdles and be able to, let's put it this way, we will not be able to do this deal if it's not the best deal possible for our kids. I do not want to go into the witness protection program. So, and as a product of the school district, I owe it to the district to make sure, and everyone involved in this process is just always has had the kids.
We have to make sure that whatever we do, it will be completely transparent, completely,
There's no other way.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Corey?
Well, just a couple comments again about this, and stepping back, looking at these, I know some of these opportunities are unique, especially, we're in Southern California, I know Nighty has a comment too, so, do you mean, well, since I'll finish my thought and then we'll jump into Nighty, is, we have a unique opportunity here. We're landlocked. We're always looking for opportunities to grow our district and give the resources we need here. I know we had those couple properties. These are aggressive moves we made as a board to expand this area here, which is important. When I look at the two aspects we're dealing with here, either this board or board 5 years from now or 10 years from now is going to have to aggressively deal with this building, obviously with their sprinkler system, upgrades and retrofitting, the whole 9 yards, because once we do that, and you're talking minimum 10 million plus by time upgrades at a minimum, depending on what we do and what levels we do, and that still makes it only the space that we have here. So knowing that as a board member, some future board's going to have to deal with that, either 5 years, 8 years, or 10 years, no matter, I don't know how far to go on without addressing it. And that's at a minimum. That's not going to change any parking situations, which we have how many spots out there now that we're not renting? About
200.
About 200 total spots with what we have. That includes everything, right? That counts everything. In this new location, we're going to have 300 and change. Is that correct?
360 just in the parking structure
Just in
alone.
the
It's
parking
actually
structure.
360 in the parking structure. The site has 509.
Yeah, because we have, that's what I'm saying. So the site itself, we have 509. For us to even think about putting subterranean parking here and adding a parking structure, you're talking millions on top of that. So now if I look at it, economies of scale of looking what we have here, we have so much opportunity here. Obviously, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But we have to look at it. The way I look at it, too, is not just when you go back to the scale. I don't know if we could put those charts on those maps back on the screen. I don't know if we can, Frank. There's a map there, a layout of, I think it's slide. It's the one with it's the one with the triangle where the boardroom was. It's the one with the properties. It's the fourth slide of the renderings. If we get to that, it's one that has a triangle. It shows where it's the back building. It's the back building. It's this one here, actually, where there's subterranean parking there.
Okay.
I think besides us looking at this as an opportunity as our site for our student services and intercultural and a welcome center and our human resource department, all of our different facilities, the second area is actually a very unique opportunity for us we haven't even discussed. And I brought this up before. We are on Grandview if this does work out. And I brought it before. Literally a block away are two major animation studios, largest in the world. We have Disney, DreamWorks, right down the block.
Shrek was born
Shrek
in the
is right
building
down
next door.
Now, if we really want to be creative, and I'm parents here hearing us, I want to say, you know what, let's even expand this more. Let's kick the doors down. Let's look at maybe opening up an animation academy here. Let's be very creative. We got a space here. But there's so much we could do with this property. It's exciting if we really think about it, to be frank. We could open up a professional development center for our training for our principals, our teachers. We have the space. We don't have the space here to do these things. So besides this stuff, I'm looking at as a board member, weighing my opportunity here, that I'm going to spend less than I would to renovate this building, keep daily still, expand parking several hundred spaces, expand this district office to where intercultural student services welcome center could all work together. We're going to have a boardroom still there to have our televised meeting that's going to be efficient. And then on top of it, there's still space there that we could incorporate an animation academy. Just throwing out an idea out there, because we partner with, we have Marvel, we have Cartoon Network, we have Nickelodeon, we have Disney, DreamWorks, all within 3 miles of that location, less than 3 miles, who would probably love to partner with us here. I'm talking really ahead of the game, but
Absolutely.
if we're thinking, and if there's a parent watching a show, they want us thinking, really, what are the full opportunities here? And we have so many animators here that live in our community, from Craig Bartlett, who did Rugrats, and if your list goes on with everybody in the entertainment industry, we have a gold mine here possible to do this. But obviously, there's dealings with negotiations with realtors and with the property. We want to keep things within containment. And I know that property's been dead for a while, hasn't been vacated, right? It's been open.
Absolutely.
So the possibilities are exciting if it is financially reasonable for us to do. So that's where Robert and I know as a board, for us to give some type of direction is that we know that we eventually have to do this building here in some way or form, and we know it's going to cost us something either now or 10 years from now. It's going to be some impact to us at one point, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we know already at a minimum, and we're talking today's prices, 6 to 10 million just for that. Here we have a chance to get double the space, double the parking, and an opportunity for an awesome academy, possibly.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying DreamWorks, Disney, Nickelodeon, like, obviously it'd be a great opportunity for them to partner with us, because we just did Pathways to College partnership with them and with the city of Burbank and with Northridge, Cal State Northridge, and we did a partnership with GCC, right? The Pathways with 5 of them. Part of its future workforce training, here's a great opportunity that's right down the street. And they could bring their existing workforce to work with our kids like we do at Clark with JPL.
Sure.
So
DreamWorks, before they built their campus, was occupying for 10 years the building next door, and that's when I say Shrek was born next door. That's what I mean. And
but I'm just
you're
excited. I'm
absolutely-
sorry about my passion about that. I look at it, and I know some people they look at linear and they say, or maybe it may be a certain person with special interest that wants to get the case or handle the contract, looking at what's best for them. This is a good opportunity for us, the way I look at it. I'm sorry, Ms. Walters, but I know it's a future
exciting.
topic about the Animation Academy. I think there's something we
Great
can do
point.
there.
All right, Ms. Nahabadian.
There we go. Mr. Manoukian, a question and a couple of comments. Is it accurate to say then that if we were to sell the property and then purchase another property, that we would not receive market value, and therefore we would lose out either by having to pay more for the newer property or get a smaller space, something like that? Am I understanding you correctly on that?
You're absolutely dead on. Besides the fact that we would not get market rate because of the restrictions that we are imposed. In addition to that, the property, the availability of property in Glendale, of having a lot size in excess of 3 acres and a building of over 100,000 square feet, you could count them with one hand, the number of buildings that exist altogether. So you're absolutely right.
Okay. And I appreciate my colleagues' comments and questions regarding the cost of staying in this building, because that's part of the cost benefit that I'm looking at, is what is the cost of staying in the building in terms of the basic renovations that have to be done just to be kept under the legal requirements that we need to meet. I'm also curious for a future meeting to have a clear understanding of the rental units that we have and what kind of benefit or what kind of profit, I suppose, we get from that, just to have the cost benefit be clear. So I'd like to have that in the future.
Absolutely.
And then the last thing I would say is about Daly High School. So Daly High School is very dear and near to all of our hearts. It's a very important high school for us. It does a great deal for a lot of our students that no other high school can do. And in the past, we've had situations where we have more students who we would like to send to Daly, and there are not enough seats. So I've talked about the possibility of making more room or expanding Daly High School in the past, and I'd like to make sure that I take this opportunity to be real clear that if there's any opportunity, or let's create the opportunity to make more room for Daly High School in order to accommodate, and let's maybe have a goal of how many more students we'd like to accommodate at Daly, and take this opportunity of making changes in this property to be able to have the possibility of expanding the Daly High School's opportunity for more students. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I'm hoping that you have also the slide presentation, and in there you will see the adjustments that we've made to the parcel to accommodate at least for what operation you have there, and we can, Mr. McEntire, maybe you want to help me on this, we can make further adjustments if that's what I'm hearing.
So there's actually several considerations that had to be taken into account with Daley. We were aware.
Well, may I ask you to speak up?
You're on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There were several considerations that had to be taken into account for Daley. The first was we were aware of the potential expansion of the school site. So we've had to make sure that the area we leave, specifically on the south side of the site, left room for an expansion building. And that is there. Additionally, any partnerships or any sort of deal that would be done with the property here, with the district office property, would have to include some sort of agreement on parking. We don't want to create a situation whereby our staff is spilling out into the local community and just kind of worsening the problem of parking surrounding that school site. So anything that involves impacting that site is already including the concept of potential future growth and the impact of that would create on parking.
Okay, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And can you say a little bit more specifically about how much room are we talking about, an expansion of a building? Is that a new building, or is that extending a building that we already have? What are we talking about? How many classroom sizes, or what kind of size of expansion are you suggesting we can do?
Well, first and foremost, we haven't allocated money to build a new building yet, so that would be a future conversation for the board. And that is definitely within the realm of possibility. At present, we have two fairly large portables on the northwest side of the Daley campus in the parking lot, in the empty lot. Those would be moved on the south side of the existing lot where the parking lot presently is for Daley. They would currently occupy about a third. There's talk of need of a third portable, which would be placed in the same space. We've accounted for that in our present site plan that's before you today. But the amount of room left in the parking, when you consider where those portables are and the parking in general, is physically big enough to put another wing if the board decided they wanted to actually build a new wing to the campus. And we could, of course, move fencing to accommodate that for proper ingress, egress, and safety. We can make agreements with whatever's built at the admin center site for the future for parking for staff. And we definitely, the real problem we're trying to avoid is just where we build a new building and then the staff that's currently parking there, we ask them to park on the street. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Of course.
Okay, I have just one. I wanted to ask about the apartment. There's two apartment buildings that are part of this exchange, and my understanding is that we are only able to hold those as, quote, investment properties for a period of time, that we are not able to have an apartment, just to rent for income forever. Is my understanding correct?
There are rules surrounding how long you can hold and under what conditions. I would want to get back to you with the legal definition on that, because it's a rather unique circumstance, and you're seeing school districts in the state of California do it far more frequently now than they did in days past.
Okay. Because I thought that that's something we had discussed previously, that we knew that in taking these apartment or purchasing these apartment buildings, that it was a short-term thing, that we would ultimately be developing that property, and I thought that there was some limitations. So I'd be interested to know if that still applies.
The extra cash generated, or the profit that the district realized through its aggressive negotiations in the last transaction, that does have a lifespan on it. But the building itself, I'd like to check in and get back to you on that.
Okay. I want to echo some of what's been said. I think this is a tremendous opportunity. We have a number of disparate properties all over the place. We have staff in many different places, and this building is is in, I don't want to say it's in disrepair. That would not be completely accurate, but if you've been in the elevator recently, you might hope that maybe we're considering to do some upgrades. And there's a number of things that I think we definitely would want to consider. But it is very hard to go out and ask voters to give money strictly for administrative purposes. So I also believe we're never going to sell property for the very reasons that we were discussing previously, because we would not be able to get market value because of the unique limitations to schools. So the opportunity for a swap for a property that would work extremely well for us, that's of the size that it is, which is, again, there's not many in the district, and we are limited to being within the district. So I think this is a tremendous opportunity.
And I commend the board for looking at opportunities like this. And going back to the apartment buildings that you mentioned, you guys did a great investment, and just the appreciation in the values. You guys are great shepherds of our kids' assets. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and we'll
Thank you.
look forward to continuing conversations.
Likewise.
All right. Next on the agenda is the update on Measure S and facilities. Dr. Empey?
Alan Rising, our administrative